Hello, how are you guys doing? I wanted to come to you and talk with you today about your PowerPoint presentation assignment, your guidelines, and your grade sheet, which can be found in Unit 6 in the document titled Presentation Guidelines and Grade Sheet. So for just a few minutes, go ahead and pause your video, find the document, print it, and then come back to the video so that you can look at the assignment and the guidelines while I talk with you about it. Now, when you're looking at the PowerPoint presentation guidelines and grade sheets, one of the things that you'll see is that for each of the slides, the directions tell you exactly what the slide expectations are. So if you're in the English 1101, then your presentation guideline shows that you have 11 slides. And if you're in the English 1010, you have 18 slides because the two different presentations and the two different projects, even though they're both on humanitarian issues, they're both a little bit different, the requirements in each of the two classes. Now, when you look at these presentation slides and guidelines, one of the things that you will see is that I give you specific details for exactly what I'm asking you to include on each slide. So you'll see that for slide 1, you will give the title presentation or the title of the presentation and your name. So that's the title presentation slide. And then on slide 2, you will give your thesis statement and all 6 key points bulleted from subheadings A, B, C, and D in your paper outline. Then for slide 3, slide 4, and slide 5, those are content slides. So that means that the majority of what you're taking and including on these 3 slides will come from your research paper. So for slide 3, you have the name of source 1. Then you give an example, which will be a statistic and a story. Then you will give an explanation of the reason that these statistics are important and also the story that you've given. And then you will also document by giving a page number in parentheses. You will also give a powerful picture of some kind that you will place on the PowerPoint. Now, you will do the same thing for slide 4 and slide 5. Slide 3 will come from 2A in your paper, from your outline and your paper. Slide 4 will come from 2B on your paper. And then for slide 5, you will have that information will come from 2C. Then you'll see that you'll have slide 6, and that's your transition slide. So you'll begin with something like on the other hand, and this is when you transition into discussing the 3 relief organizations that you have chosen. So you will list all 3 organizations on this slide. Then when you get to slide 7, you'll see that this is another content slide. This comes from, let's see, I believe this comes from 2D in your paper. So you will give the name of organization 1 and then an example that includes a statistic and a story. Then you will give the name of organization 2 that will give an example and a story. And then you will give the name of organization 3 and include a statistic and a story. And then you will document giving a page number, and then you will also include a picture on that slide as well. Now slide 8, you're beginning to close out the presentation, and just like with your paper, anytime you close out a paper, a presentation, you take your reader back to your key points. So slide 8 is a paraphrase of your thesis statement. Slide 9 will be a reiteration of all 6 key points from A, B, C, and D. Now, when you go to present the information, one of the things that you want to keep in mind is as you're presenting this information, whether you're video recording the presentation or whether or not you're presenting in class, this particular slide, when you present it, you should repeat and say the information on the slide. We never have a slide in a presentation in which we don't say something about the slide. So we don't just show the slide and then advance to the next slide without saying something. Then for slide 10, you'll see that you're giving a final statement that shows universal significance. How is this information important? How does helping these people who are suffering from this condition change the whole world? Slide 11, you'll have your works cited page. You will include a full works cited page, not just web addresses. Without the works cited page, any document that is used and has sources included in it, without a works cited page, the document is considered plagiarized. So that is a requirement to have the works cited page so that the document is not considered plagiarized. If the works cited page is not included because it's plagiarized, then the only thing that a teacher can do is to assign a non-passing grade. So you have to include the works cited page in order for the work to be considered and to be counted. So do not forget that. So when you're giving this works cited page, you want to think about the very first assignment that we had, in which we looked at the way in which to cite different sources that we might be using, and that particular work would be the annotated bibliography. So if you go back to the annotated bibliography, you'll see that when you're citing this information, you include the author's last name, comma, and first name. Then you have the smaller work in quotation marks. Then you have the larger work, such as a journal, italicized. Then you give the publication information. Then you give the name of the database that from which this information came. And then you have the word web, and then you also have your retrieval date, with the last item that to be included will be the web address for that particular source that you have included. So you want to make sure that all that information is included for each source so that your work that you've worked so hard on will be considered and given credit. Now, I can't say this enough, and I usually say this several times throughout any presentation on teaching others how to present different types of information or to write papers. The most powerful argument that you have in writing and persuading anyone, or in writing an argumentation paper, is the power of pathos. And pathos simply means your ability to evoke emotion in that person. So when you're giving your examples, you want to make sure that you include victim stories on every slide, because that is the way in which we are able to evoke emotion in our readers, so that when they see what is happening with this group of people, that emotion then evokes a response in them that's also called ethos. And that means that when they see this situation and the suffering of this person, then their ethics then come into play, and they want to make sure that no one else suffers in this way, and that they can end the suffering for this person also. So just simply by giving these victim stories, you have evoked pathos in your reader and also ethos. But when we're looking at argumentation, we also have to include logos. And that is one of the reasons that we include statistics, because when someone sees that there are large numbers of people suffering from whatever this condition is, then their logic comes into play at that point, and they say that no, not even one person should suffer from this, but especially not this many people who are suffering from this should ever have to. So you want to make sure that you give statistics on every slide and also victim stories, because that's how you evoke those three elements of argument that are so powerful. Now, to begin, you should include an interesting graphic on every slide, as a picture is worth 1,000 words and evokes pathos. Headings and subheadings on the PowerPoint are only to give your listeners an idea of the information that you are presenting. Therefore, the presentation should only be facilitated by bulleted key points on the PowerPoint slides, as you should be presenting the ideas that you wish to present rather than just reading them from slides that have too much text included. Presenting from a copy of each of your PowerPoint slides would prevent the awkwardness of continuously turning to look at the screen behind you or away from your audience. So when you're presenting either in video, or if you're presenting in a classroom or for an audience of any kind, one of the things that you want to do is to have your PowerPoint presentation right in front of you so that you can see it. And then as you advance each slide, then you're able to flip to the next slide so that you can see right in front of you the information that you're about to present. if you don't have the information in front of you, then what happens is you have to keep turning around behind you in order to look at the slide to see what you're about to present. What that does is, instead of giving your viewers a view of where you are, which is right here, and allowing you to project your voice, what they actually see is the back of you. And so that's what we don't want to happen in a presentation. So we always want to face our audience, and we always want to make sure that we can make eye contact and that we can project our voice out into the audience instead of toward the overhead projector screen. Now, the other thing that you want to remember is that under the Home on the PowerPoint taskbar, you have a taskbar that is very similar to the one included in Word, which makes it easier for you to design. On the taskbar, you also have Home, which has an option for adding new slides when you wish to. And then the Design feature allows you to choose designs for your slides. The Insert feature allows you to insert clip art, photos, videos, whatever it is that you might want to include on your slide that enhances the information that you're presenting. Remember though, one of the things that I want you to do with these PowerPoints is to have fun, because this is your opportunity in the classroom to use colors and sounds and pictures and all kinds of artistic means to be able to get your message across to your audience. So since I've begun PowerPointing, I have found that I love to PowerPoint because, like I said, it gives me that ability to use my artistic talents in creating something that I'm going to present for someone else. So I hope you have fun with these. Now, for added interest and for strong emotional appeal, pathos, and ethical appeal, once again, as you're inserting these videos and these photos and clips, you want to make sure that you're inserting things that will give you the ability to show victim stories, to give statistics and information that's going to evoke the powers of argument. Now, there are all kinds of features in PowerPointing, and if you go to the Help button at the bottom of the PowerPoint screen, or in Google Slides, if you decide to use Google Slides, or even to YouTube, whatever there is that you're trying to do to enhance your presentation, you can always find a YouTube video to help you and assist you in being able to add all the bells and whistles and those kinds of things that you might want to include. Now, you'll also see that a grade sheet follows. So before class, if we do present these in class, then what you want to do is to print the assignment sheet and grade sheet to turn in for the grading, along with your outline and full page copies of your PowerPoint to be turned in before you present. All copies should be made before class begins, as time is of essence during the presentation week. If you are in an online class, you will videotape yourself presenting each slide and upload the video clips onto each slide accordingly. So, if we are presenting these in class, if you're in an in-class class, then what happens is during presentation week, we have limited time for presenting. We have approximately 10 to 15 minutes per presentation that is presented. So in order to accommodate that amount of time for each presentation and for each student, because sometimes we have up to 25 students in a class, then one of the things that we have to do is we have to have our materials printed before class. If we're trying to print our materials during class time, then that takes up so much class time that other students wind up not having the time to present. So one of the things that I ask you is that you have your presentation materials ready for grading and also ready to hand out to the students in the classroom so that we can facilitate the time that we need in order to present. Okay, so you'll see that a grade sheet follows and that there are certain criteria that I will be grading you for. And for some of those criteria, you'll see that they're eye contact, voice projection, posture, use of natural gestures, clear communication, the outline of your presentation that you give to your peers, the question and answer session, the PowerPoint slides, the design and the content, as well as the works cited page. So when we're thinking about eye contact in a presentation, eye contact is very important in being able to maintain your audience's attention. So one of the things that you can do in order to make eye contact with your audience is just begin on one side of the room or the other. I'll begin on the left. And so I just begin on the left, and as I'm making eye contact, I just take a few seconds and look at each person in the classroom, all the way around the classroom until I get to the very end, all the way to the far right. And then once I've made contact with every person in the classroom, then I just start scanning the classroom again. And I just go back to the left and I look at each person for just a few seconds. That's all it takes. And then all the way back to the left side of the classroom. Now, what this does is it involves every single person in the classroom in your presentation, and that is how you're able to maintain their interest. Now, if you have any difficulty making eye contact in a presentation, then what you can do is you can just start scanning on the left side of the room, and as you scan the left side of the room, instead of looking at each person, you just scan the tops of the person's heads, okay, all the way to the right. All right, and you're measuring this by just seconds, and then you begin to scan the classroom again to the opposite side, all the way until you have looked at everyone in the classroom. Now, what this prevents you from doing is from finding just this one person in the classroom that for whatever reason that person has a comfortable face to you. And then if you're not careful, instead of presenting to everyone in the classroom, you will only present to that person. So practicing being able to scan from one side of the room to the other helps prevent that for you and for them and for the rest of the classroom who become very uncomfortable with the fact that someone has just presented to one person in the classroom for 10 or 15 minutes. So just work on being able to scan the classroom so that you can prevent that. The other thing that I grade for is voice projection. And the way that we can help ourselves with voice projection is by simply breathing deeply and practicing that. So that what happens when we breathe deeply is, one, it pushes us up and gives us great posture. And then the other thing that happens is it opens the diaphragm, it fills it with air, and then it gives us the ability to push our voices forward so that our voice will project from the front of the classroom all the way to the back of the classroom. If we don't practice that and we're unable to do that, then what happens is people in the back of the classroom or in the back of the audience are unable to hear the presentation, so that the only thing that they see while we're presenting for 10 or 15 minutes are our lips moving. So we want to prevent that from being able to project our voices out into the classroom and into the back of the classroom. And we do that simply by practicing and breathing deeply so that we're able to do that. The other thing that we want to think about is our posture. So that when we're giving a presentation, we want to make sure that we have excellent posture. We don't want to be leaned up on the podium or propped up on the podium in any way. We want to make sure that we are breathing deeply enough that our that our diaphragm has pushed up our posture so that we're nice and straight and tall. The other thing that we want to think about are natural gestures, and as a part of natural gestures are our hand movements. A lot of people think that we're not supposed to be able to use our hands when we talk, but when we're in a presentation, our hands actually direct our readers to, or our viewers to, whatever it is that we want their attention on. So if we reach out into the audience and then we bring our hands back to ourselves, we are actually directing our audience's attention from somewhere else to us. We can also direct our audience's attention to whatever document we might be wanting to show our audience, as well as to the projector screen behind us. So natural gestures are very important for being able to do that. The other thing that we want to be able to do is to smile at our audience. No matter where you go, a smile is a universal sign of friendship. So when we're working with our audience, one of the things that we want to do is to be able to smile at our audience, because that immediately tells our audience that we are a person of friendship to them, and they are more receptive to whatever it is that our message is. The other thing that we want to think about is clear communication. And clear communication simply means trying to enunciate our words clearly and using correct grammar mechanics. Now, that does not mean that we won't make a mistake. It doesn't mean that we won't misspeak or mispronounce something. That just happens sometimes because we are human beings, and human beings make mistakes. One of the times that I can remember in which I found people who make mistakes to be so brave was when my daughter was a dancer, and she was a dancer for about 10 years, and they would work so hard to perform their routines, and they would get to the end of the year when they were having their recitals, and at some point during the recital someone would fall while dancing. And those girls were so brave, because one of the things that they did, I mean, from tiny little girls all the way up to the older girls, one of the things that they would do is once they would fall, they would sit there for just a couple of seconds. They would be stunned, of course, and then all of a sudden they would figure out where the routine was. They would stand up and then begin to dance around the stage just as if they had never fallen. One shoe on, one shoe off to the side somewhere on the stage. It didn't matter. They would find their routine and they would continue to dance. So if that happens to you, if you misspeak, if you drop a piece of paper, if you drop a book, whatever happens, it doesn't mean that we act silly when we make a mistake, but whatever happens, you don't even have to apologize. You just find your place and you just keep going. Okay, so if that happens to you, remember just to keep going and not to worry about it. The other thing that I'll look at is the outline of the presentation. So every now and then when someone turns in the outline for the presentation, instead of turning in a full page outline, I'll get an outline that only one quadrant is filled with the outline, and then the rest of the paper is just white space. So one of the things that we want to do so that the document is more pleasing, or any document that we submit anywhere is more pleasing, we want to make sure that whatever document we're submitting, that we're controlling what's called white space. And that simply means that we start at the top and we evenly space things throughout the document from the beginning of the document all the way to the end, so that it looks more pleasing and more presentable. We usually have anywhere from 15 to 25 students in a class, so I would keep these outlines to one page so that you can, keep the minimum of probably about 25 pages per class in order to give your audience something. We always give our audience something to hold on to while we're presenting. Then we also have a question and answer session. And when we're asking questions of our peers, we don't have to ask something that a rocket scientist couldn't answer. We want to ask something that pertains to the presentation and something that we really have a genuine interest and question for our peer presenter. Now, if someone asks you something and you don't know the answer, that's okay. You simply say, I don't know the answer, but I will do the research and get back with you on that. And once you tell a student that you will do the research and get back with him or her on that, then what you want to do is to do that and then at some point have a conversation with that student. Now, the reason that you want to practice the pause when someone asks you something in a presentation is we all have this innate need to know the answer. And that means that when someone asks us something, we immediately want to give an answer. But that is not always the best practice to do. We should always pause and make sure we know the correct answer. Because if we give an incorrect answer, what's going to happen is usually someone in the audience will know the correct answer. And the first thing that person is going to do is to raise his or her hand. And that person's going to say, I know the answer. And if you don't acknowledge that person, then they're going to raise the hand even higher and say, no, I know the answer to that over here. Okay? And then that person is going to give the answer to correct your incorrect answer. All right? And then, unfortunately, everything that you have said that has been wonderful throughout the presentation is called into question simply because you gave an incorrect answer. So what we want to do in that situation is to just practice the pause, and then if we don't know the answer, just say, I don't know the answer to that at the moment, but I will research that and get back with you. Now, you'll notice too that one of the things that I look for, and this is the important, or the reason that it's so important for you to refer to the beginning of this presentation guide, where it tells you what's on each slide or what should be included on each slide. You'll see that in the grade sheet it has a section for that, and so that everything that is included in the PowerPoint presentation gets a check. And when I see what these line items are, so for instance, if I'm looking at slide 3, it says name of source 1, and it asks for an example, a story and a stat, an explanation, a documentation, and then a pic. So as I see that on the slide, what I do is to place a check mark on it. And then if I don't see it on the slide, I place an X there, so that each check mark totals a point. Each X totals a point, a deducted point. So you just want to make sure and use this initial guideline, this initial sheet, to make sure that you have everything, every requirement that is requested included on each of your slides. The other thing that you will see is the works cited page. So once again, we've already discussed that, and we know that we must have a works cited page anytime we're using sources. A works cited page has to be included. Now, if you go back to your works cited page in your research paper, you can actually copy and paste your works cited page if you have included all of the information. You can copy and paste your works cited page onto that final screen. You'll just have to probably do a few adjustments, formatting adjustments, to make it look right as far as the format. So the last option for this particular grade sheet is a 5 points extra credit for embedding a YouTube video. So what you want to do is you want to look for a video in which you can pull out a 2-minute clip, or you can find a 2-minute video clip that coincides with the information that you're delivering in your presentation. And when you give this information, one of the things that you want to do is to view the entire video clip to make sure that there is nothing else that has been embedded in the clip that would not be appropriate to show in the class. So we want to make sure that everything we show is appropriate, and so that we're not showing something that's startling that should never be shown in class. So just review the video clip before you embed it and before you include it. So what I have found with this particular presentation is that most of the time my students, if they have included everything that they should, they generally make anywhere from 90 to 105 points. So at 10% added into the grade, you can see where this can increase the grade point average in the classroom very significantly. So what I would suggest is, just like I said, using this as your checkoff list for everything that you should include in the slide, and then practicing for several days before you actually either videotape it or before you plan to come into the classroom to deliver it. Now, as far as dress, it says dress for success here, and when I'm talking about dressing for success, what you guys wear to class, you're usually neat and you're usually well groomed and you're usually dressed appropriately. So the clothing that you normally wear to class is certainly fine for this particular PowerPoint. Every now and then I will have someone who will present in a 3-piece suit or Sunday dress attire or dress attire of some kind in order to present, and they're beautiful. And if that makes a person feel more comfortable presenting, then by all means, there's nothing wrong with doing that. However, I don't want anyone to feel that he or she has to go out and spend money to prepare to present for the class or for this video presentation. So what you normally wear to class, what you're comfortable in, what makes you feel like you want to present is certainly good enough for this presentation that you're about to videotape or to present in front of the classroom. Now, the last thing that I want to say to you is that your presentations are the highlight of my semester. I love your presentations. Your presentations are about something, about a topic that is very close to my heart and to my life, and that is our ability to use our voices that we gain through education, one, for ourselves, and then to be able to use our voices that we have gained through education to help those who may not have a strong enough voice in order to help themselves. So these presentations are actually our way of taking our educations and our voices and being able to pay it forward to help and assist someone else. So as I said, these presentations are very, very dear to my heart, and I know that you put a lot of work into doing your annotated bibliographies, into finding the research, into writing the research papers, and into preparing for these presentations in which you are able to change the face of your world and the lives of other people. So thank you so much for the hard work that you put into these, and I certainly look forward to reviewing your presentations. Take care and have a great day. Bye-bye.